Welcome to From the Honeycomb podcast. I am your host, Katerina. Join me as we explore stories of fearless female entrepreneurs and inspiring women in architecture, construction, engineering, and beyond. Each episode is a captivating blend of topics that resonate with the soul. Whether you're here to learn more about entrepreneurship, architecture, holistic living, or just need a little extra inspiration, you've come to the right place. So sit back, relax, and let the buzz of positive energy spark your curiosity. Welcome to the second episode of the Women in Architecture series. This year's theme focuses on the power of collaboration within the profession. I'm excited to welcome Bryn Young, an architect, entrepreneur, and ARE coach dedicated to helping aspiring architects achieve licensure. Through her innovative resources like the Activity Book for Architects and her Mind Over ARE coaching program, Bryn is passionate about empowering the next generation to excel in both their exams and careers. So Bryn, welcome back to From the Honeycomb podcast, and thank you for being part of the Women in Architecture series.
Yes, thank you so much, Katerina, for having me, and thanks for inviting me back. I think this whole series you do is so powerful, and I see so many incredible speakers come on your platform, and I've even connected with so many amazing women from your resource, so it's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, well, thank you. That's really sweet. As you know, we begin every episode by sharing something that we are grateful for in the present moment. So what are you grateful for?
I am grateful for the space and slowdown that I had over the last 6 months-ish. I, in April, became full-time stay-at-home with my youngest, which completely freaked me out in the beginning, created a bit of anxiety and like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Because obviously I run a business. And I kept telling myself, like, I know that the universe is doing this for some sort of reason, because I always say like, oh, I'm building this business so I can spend more time with my family. So the universe is like, all right, here you go, like figure it out. And it was tough at first, but through that space, and then my oldest, I decided to stay home with her, not have her do camps or anything starting in June. So both kids. And it was the most incredible few 5-6 months ever, because I was still able to work, but I was very deliberate about the work that I was doing. I wasn't doing a lot of like busy work, which meant I had to say no to some things, but I was able to really slow down and spend that quality time with them, which I obviously have done a little bit, but I've never slowed down like that. And the business didn't burn down, things didn't all disappear and go away. And I was able to come back the last couple weeks, because now they're both in school, very rejuvenated and inspired, and have had so many ideas and creativity that I haven't had in a long time. So I never would have done that unless forced into it. And I'm very grateful that I had that opportunity.
That's amazing. And the time that you got to spend with them, that's time you're never going to get back.
Yeah.
So I think that's just absolutely incredible that you were able to. And like you said, nothing happened with the business. It didn't burn down. You're okay. Like, it's okay to take that time and to reprioritize in life, because it's just different seasons and chapters of life. And I think it's really beautiful that you took the time to be with them, because that's just such a special time. That's priceless.
Yeah, and they're 3 and 7, so it really was special, and it helped me reevaluate a lot of beliefs of, like, you have to work hard to be successful, or you have to work hard to make money, and to create value, you have to be working always really hard. I just always had a very hard work to make it mindset, and I realized that I was able to still provide impact and value without burning myself out, and it was very powerful. I'm still, learning lessons from it and finding that balance of not doing anything. Like, there's still stuff to be done, but it's more quality over the quantity. And that's been a big life lesson. So it's very grateful for that.
Good. And I think that was your word of the year as well. Wasn't there something like your word of the year was like to slow down or something, I remember?
Yes. Thank you for remembering that. That is So last year, my word was play, because my original word was grow, and I felt really overwhelmed, and I ended up totally burning out. So I changed it to play so that I could start having more fun. Then this year it was the do less but better.
Yes,
That's right.
that's right.
Yes, because I read a book, I think in January, now I'm forgetting exactly which one it was, but it was all about that. Maybe it's even called that. Anyways, and it was all about doing less but better. And so, yeah, I kind of forgot about that. And it's just funny how it's like, people talk about manifestation. It's like I
Mhm.
was manifesting things all slowing down around me, which seems scary at first until I was like, okay, this is what I wanted. And yes, so definitely doing things less but better.
Mm. Well, I'm proud of you that that theme has still showed up throughout the year, and we're almost done through the year, and you're still keeping with that word or theme of the year. That's really great.
Well, and thank you for the reminder because I
Yeah.
I did kind of forget about that initial phrase, and I want to continue to keep it at the forefront as the kids are going back to school because I already find
Mhm.
myself the kids are going back to school, and, like, this week actually has
Mhm.
been insane days all day, and I'm, like, working hard, but I'm getting creatively inspired, so I'm like but I do have to slow down, not get back into old habits of having to do it all and do it all perfectly and all that stuff. So it's a good reminder.
Yes, yes, it is. Hi, it's me, Katerina. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to share with you something that can change the trajectory of your life. If you are ready to start your own architecture firm but are feeling overwhelmed by where to begin, I understand, because I felt the same way when I first embarked on my entrepreneurial journey. This is why I have created the ebook, The Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm. This comprehensive workbook contains everything I wish I had known before starting my own firm. From building a solid business plan to creating your brand, the Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm offers a step-by-step guide tailored to your timeline, whether you're launching your firm today, next month, or in a few years. Dive into essential topics like financial planning, organization strategies, and how to secure your first client, all in one convenient resource. That's right, you don't have to spend hours researching. I have done that for you so you can focus on building your business. And that's not all. With your purchase, you'll also receive an exclusive meditation for business owners, mindfulness tips, a crystal guide for support, and gratitude exercises to help you stay focused and positive throughout your journey. Turn your dream of having your own firm into a reality with the Mindful Blueprint for Launching Your Architecture Firm. Click on the link in the show notes to get your copy today. Now, let's dive into the episode. Well, so for listeners who are interested to hear about your story, I know we talked, I think your episode aired last spring. So I'll provide a link in the show notes if the people want to hear about your background and how you started your firm. Because today I really want to talk about your Mind Over ARE courses, how you're helping students, which I think actually that's how I originally found you was when I was studying for the California exam. And you had
That's
some
right.
CSE supplemental exam stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this information? And like since then, you've obviously grown so much with your ARE exams and practice stuff. But I also want to talk about your collaboration with 07 Sketches, which I know we'll get to. But can you share with us your journey into starting Mind Over ARE and like what inspired you to go and pivot your business in that direction?
Yeah. So, like Katerina said, I've talked a lot more about my whole entrepreneurship journey in our last episode. And so, just a quick snippet is that I have a architecture studio. We're
Mhm.
not taking on new clients right now because I've made this pivot, but I have been running it since 2015. So there was a lot of building this business and what I had always envisioned what I wanted to do as an architect. So because I didn't get licensed till 2020, I started that company as a design firm, then transitioned into architecture, of course. So I went through the AREs from 2017 through 2019 and failed like nobody's business, like it failed
Yeah.
a lot. And that was a very difficult process to go through. Like anyone going through the Aries knows that it is a full roller coaster that I was not prepared for. I did not
Mm.
realize the impact of it. And so it was a lot of figuring it out on my own, going through this process of understanding myself, of how to deal with these fails, how to understand if this is really what I wanted because of that. And then in 2020, I passed my CSE. So to become a licensed architect in California, I had to still go through that exam. But it was March 2020, and we must have been shut down for like a week. But I had
Mhm.
always wanted to share my story about failing because in person, over the 2, 3 years talking to people, I'd always tell them about that failing, and their responses were always surprised that I was talking about it, and also understanding from the people who had gone through it that they also had dealt with that too and didn't really have people to talk about it with. And I don't even now, in hindsight, I don't even remember what was that initial trigger to want me to share that story, but I decided to sit down with a camera and just talk about my experience taking the exams. I had finished my last one in November, so it was, I don't know how many months after, 5 months or so, and I just talked about it, but I talked about the process of failing and how hard that was and what I did to get through that and then eventually get done with it. And that was my very first video that I posted on YouTube. I just thought it would be fun to share my story, but I didn't have any sort of strategy. It's not like I'm like, okay, now I'm going to teach people how to take their exams. That was literally the last thing on my mind because I was
Mhm.
working on projects. I never thought that I would actually go into helping people pass the exams. I just wanted to share my story. So that video started getting some traction. I'm like, huh, okay, I guess people want to hear about this. And people were commenting, thank you for sharing. I went through the same process, asking me questions. So then obviously 2020 where all
Mm.
projects were going on hold. I'm like, maybe I should start. Actually, I didn't really think about YouTube totally. I was like, well, I'll do a video on materials. Okay. And then in September, I'm like, maybe I should start a podcast. That way I don't have to be like visually on. I don't have to set up the
Yeah.
camera. That seems too much.
Yeah.
So 2020, I actually had hired a woman to help with like assistant work in
Mhm.
my firm. And she's the one who was like, have you ever thought about a podcast? I'm like, yes, all the time. I've thought about a podcast. I'm like, but I don't know if I should do it. Like, people, do I have anything to say? Like, how could I have so much to say each week? She's like, you should do it. So I really appreciate this assistant I had who was like, pushed me into
Yeah.
this. So I just started making podcast episodes. A couple of those had a video with it that I'd throw on YouTube, and I kept seeing that YouTube was definitely where people were finding me, and we're
Mhm.
getting a lot more interaction than just podcasts. So that's when I was like, okay, I guess I should just film this, put them up on both. And to be perfectly honest, I wanted to talk about business and I wanted to talk to homeowners because I was building my architecture firm. I wanted to get more projects and kind of be that authority in the space. And then once in a while, I would put in an ARE episode because I saw that those were doing well. Well, I had to look at the numbers and it would always blow it out of the water as all the architecture exam stuff. And people kept coming into my DMs on Instagram, asking me questions. And the thing I kept hearing was that the things was talking about were new perspectives that they hadn't been hearing outside of what I was saying,
Mhm.
which surprised me because I'm like, well, I'm just talking and sharing my experience and telling you how I did it. But I kept getting more and more questions, especially around the failure. I don't know what that video, what type of views it has right now, but I still get people asking or really telling me. It's like people will come into my messages and be like, I just failed an exam again, and this is like my 10th one. And I love that I can hold space for those people and be someone to have them be able to talk to about that because
Mhm.
as you know, like we don't all have someone who understands what we're going through, even if we have a spouse or like a partner or family members or a good friend, there's still not a full level of understanding. So I really appreciate being that person for
Mhm.
people. So this is a very long introduction to how Mind Over ARE started, but I wanted to give that long introduction because it was years before I actually turned this into something. So I created a free resource guide just to break down all the various resources. It didn't even start out as like a quote unquote lead magnet, which
Mhm.
is kind of like the digital business term. I put it up on a free Google Drive and it was just anyone could use it. Well, then
Mhm.
I started reading more books and hearing more about how I could actually start monetizing this because I was doing a lot of work, doing the podcast, doing the YouTube, connecting, and really almost like coaching people through direct messaging for years. And I wasn't making any money, which is fine because I had my firm too. But I was realizing how passionate I was about this and realizing like, how can I be compensated for it so that I can do it even more and bigger and better and help more people. So I ended up turning that free resource into a opt-in that I could receive emails. And again, it was like just still free resources I was giving out. So it was 2022. So it was 2 years after I started the podcast and YouTube and all that, that I actually decided to put together a program. Now, that is like a whole other conversation we should have. We can have another business conversation that is more about like
Yes.
all the inner work and stuff you have to go through to be vulnerable enough to put out a product and connect with people in the right way, because I was playing really small. Like, well, I just want to help people, but I don't want them to feel like I'm selling them something, or it was
Mhm.
a whole thing. So all I did, it was March 2022. I sent out an email to my email list and I just said, "Hey, I'm going to be opening up this program where I didn't even have the proper description of what it ended up becoming. I basically was like, I want to help you through the mindset and the failing side of the exams so that you can pass, because it's not about just the content. It's if you have taken multiple exams, if you've failed one and then haven't been able to get back in it for months or years because of that experience, I want to
Mhm.
help you." So I ended up getting 6 people who signed up for that first
Mm.
one on my email. And I was like, okay, I guess this is what people want. And I value and appreciate those people so much for taking a chance on me to help them. And then as we were going through the program, I was seeing this transformation in these people and hearing their feedback and seeing how big of a shift this could make for people. And what it was Mind Over ARE. It started out as a 6-week program where we would meet each week and do coaching. I would bring them through certain strategies, but I also developed a system where each week they go through stuff that teaches them about all sorts of stuff. There's strategy for the exams, but that is one piece of the puzzle. A lot of it's into how do you specifically learn and how can you look at how you're studying and see where you might be missing the mark. For example, a lot of people feel like they need to just read the textbooks and take notes like we did in school and then get in
Mhm.
there and take the exam. And they're doing that over and over and realizing it's not happening. What is wrong with me? So the very first week I give them an assessment and go into how do you actually learn? We have a member just on Tuesday when we had a call who told me, she's like, "I have never felt more excited and energized studying, and I'm actually retaining the information." She said, I
Mhm.
went I took a practice exam for NCARB and just did 20 questions, and she got the first 15 of them right. She's like, "Normally, I would get, like, 5 right."
Mhm.
And the biggest shift, though, is that she said, "But I'm actually, like, enjoying the process." So, it's hard to fully explain what Mind Over Aries is until people are in it, because it's not just a study program. It's not just, reviewing, like, retaining walls or whatever.
Mhm.
It's a lot more than that, which I do believe that it is for just the right person,
Right.
because if you're just starting out with the exams, I do believe it is for you as well, but sometimes you're not quite in that struggle enough to wanna
Yeah.
make a big shift, and Mind Over Area is really to create that big shift in people. So, it's definitely evolved a lot over the last 2 years. One of our very first members who joined that first cohort is now a licensed and now a coach inside Mind Over ARE,
Yay! Oh,
which
that's
is just
awesome.
so incredible. So it started out as a 6-week program. We literally didn't have any study sessions on content at all. It was much more just coaching. Now it is a 8-week program. We have weekly study sessions with our coach, And then we still do the mindset is such like a loaded word. So it's much more than just mindset. We have
Mhm.
the coaching calls also that go into whatever else you're maybe struggling with, or say you have an exam coming up in 2 weeks. Let's talk about the best protocol over the next 2 weeks to get you in there feeling really good. So it's evolved. It's wonderful. We keep it small cohorts to allow it to be intimate so that you can share whatever you're going through and not feel like there's a ton of people. So our groups are really between 10 to 15 people on a call, which is really nice. So that's Mind Over ARE. It started out and it was like I tripped into this side of architecture and education that I didn't realize how much I loved it until I was in it. And then now that has evolved into much more as well, much more of study content.
Mhm. Wow. Well, it sounds like you've created such a community because I have had a very similar, as listeners know, a similar journey with my ARE exams. It was failure after failure. And there is a different, I like that you brought up, there's that different mindset, that different shift of joining your group because you can burn out so easily on those exams. And as I was thinking, I was like, I remember what study courses were available. And the courses that were available were taught by people who excelled at the exams.
Mm,
And I always felt like, kind of like the not like the loser, but I was just like, yeah, why am I having so much trouble? And so I
mhm,
think that's why so many people have resonated with you because like so many people fail. I remember going on to the NCARB, they're like little forum, and only looking for other people who failed because then I felt like I wasn't alone.
mm,
And then that just made me feel a little better like, oh, it's not just me out here floating in the ocean by myself of like, I don't get it. And I think mindset is so, so important to the exams. So it's really beautiful that you've created this community for people who are struggling through the AREs and then having mindset be a part of it. And I know you've had some really great other architects on. I know Morgan Chihuahua, I think, was on for meditations and like,
mhm.
and talking about mindset because there is so much of it that goes to the mental headspace you're in. Like you could study amazingly, but if at the day of the exam your mindset isn't there, you could possibly fail. Like, and that happened to me a few times. I was like, I totally got this. And then the day of something happened mentally, I just, blocked everything out. So there is so much that goes to mindset and the success in the exams with the mindset.
Yeah, and when we go into the exams, like we went into studio with the studio culture mindset, like you say, we burn ourselves out or we think, well, maybe I'm not meant to do this. Why are people succeeding and I'm not? Maybe I'm not going to be a good architect because I can't pass these. And so that is something I really am emphasizing turning on its head that studio culture is not the healthy, sustainable way to go about these
Mhm.
exams. It's like the people who want to take all 6 exams, study for them all at once, take them all within a week or a month. I've literally had people wanting to take them all within a few days. That is that studio culture mindset. If you pass, great. But if you don't, you can burn yourself out so bad that it will take you years to
Mhm.
get through it. So, a much more healthy, sustainable way is the only way to be able to stay consistent. And it's the tortoise and the hare, right? It's like this
Mhm.
so traditional, but it really is the right way. Like, again, we just had another member who was talking about her study plan. I was asking her when her next exam is, if she had scheduled it, and then what backtracking and what her next few weeks look like. And she said it was so great because I used the plan strategies and was able to see, okay, I'm going to Disneyland with my son on this day. I have a wedding this day. It's my mother's birthday this week. And she was able to incorporate that into her plan. So when we don't properly strategize a study
Mhm.
plan, we choose a date, well, or we don't choose a date and then it never comes, or we choose a
Right.
date, then those big milestones or the life happenings come into play and we feel like, oh well, I can't enjoy that. I can't do that because I have to study or I have to reschedule my exam because now I'm going to Disneyland. Where
Mhm.
it's not. It's life. This is a average 2-year process, so incorporating it holistically into your life so that you go to Disneyland and doesn't throw anything off because you've already planned for that. You already know that that's a space where I'm going to put everything else on hold, fully be present for my family. And then I already know that on Monday I'm going to be reading about building systems. So
Mhm.
there's strategies to make it less fight or flight the whole journey.
No, absolutely. I wish I had that because at the end, I just saw a friend of mine over the weekend, and we hadn't seen each other since I was studying for the exams. And she's
Mm,
like, "Yeah, you kind of dropped off the face of the earth. Like you were really studying." And I'm like, I ended up totally like phone off every weekend. I went to no birthdays. No, I think we skipped Thanksgiving one year. I was like, I can't.
wow.
And it just got so because I'm like, this is it's like my thing is short term pain, long term gain. But it got to the point where I was like, I had to really just focus on the exams because I didn't have something like Mind over ARE, which I think would have been like the perfect study material for me, honestly.
When you just said that you skipped Thanksgiving, I got full body chills, like, that because I can completely understand, and I hear it all the time from people, that feeling like either you're gonna fail if you go and enjoy yourself
Mhm.
or yeah, like, you have to go through the pain in order to succeed, and there is a better way, and it is something that it's so important to me, and that was why it was really nice having Morgan on Healthy Architect because she's all about that too, like, in our work career life, how do we not bring that studio culture into it? And I'm hoping that between what we do talking about things,
Mhm.
what I help teach in the exams, what Morgan's now doing for careers, like hopefully more dialogue is happening so that there isn't this there needs to be shifts within the firms, within the schools, and hopefully as we're doing this, there is change because you can be a great architect and not burn yourself out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, now I want to jump into your collaboration with O7 Sketches because that I think was when I saw your activity book, your coloring book come out for I think I got the first one of the first editions when that was really interesting where you were like pay what you can
Yeah.
and I remember opening it up and I was like, "Oh my gosh, again, I wish I had this." Like I had already been licensed at that point and I was like, "Yeah, but I still want to see like what's in here. Maybe I can use this to like help me remember certain things cuz like there is like a brain dump after the exams where I'm like, I don't feel like I have to use this, but some of the stuff is still relevant." So, can you talk to us about the collaboration you had and how that started?
Yes, so I have to send you the physical book. I'll send it to you so that
Oh,
you
yeah.
can check it out and see it
Awesome.
because, again, talk about an evolution. I find that I get a lot of ideas, and I am obviously a creative person, right? I identify as a very creative person, but I also have an ADHD mind where I come up with a lot of ideas and I wanna do a lot of things, but then I can't do it all. So I
Mhm.
have, like, full notes and everything with ideas. Which is great, but it also can get a little overwhelming in my brain. But it came out one day. I was in a coaching call actually through Mind Over Airy, and I was talking with someone, and I don't even know what she said. I think something along like I this content's just so dry and boring, and I'm working so hard, and I usually can't start studying until like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm just like, I don't want to look at these things anymore. Like this is just
Mhm.
boring. And something happened where I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, what if you could have fun while you're studying? And what if it's, like, an activity, like, something that you can sketch or maybe a coloring book or something?" And I have 2 kids. I have a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old. When I first started the activity book, it was last February, so 22. So I had a 1.5-year-old or something like
Mhm.
that. So we have a lot of activity books around the house.
Of
We
course.
do a lot of drawing and my both
Mhm.
girls love art, so we're always doing crafts and stuff, and I love crafts. So I started brainstorming that idea. Now, like you say, when I first developed it and put it out there, I was very hesitant to put out actual study content because
Mhm.
1, it has to be so comprehensive. There's so much information out there. I felt like that would never be able to be done. Like, how could I possibly have it be complete? There's just so much information. 2, I felt like imposter syndrome came up a little bit in, like, do I even know this information? Like,
Yeah.
yes, I passed these exams, but, like, do I even know this? So it was very
Mhm.
interesting that a lot of thoughts came up that I had the idea at first and then kinda put it off, and then was like, "Well, if I can make it playful for myself as well, then, it doesn't have to be so serious. It doesn't have to be a full complete textbook." Because in the past, I had ideas of, okay, a study guide and would start it, but then it was like, there's just too much information here. So
Mhm.
I started out with a couple simple sheets, like a crossword, some connect the dot type things, some like just very simplistic. Also, the way my brain worked when I was studying for PA was sketching out some of the different building like shapes based on the
Yeah,
climate
same.
and stuff
Yeah, I
like
remember.
that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Or like the lake views, like where
Mhm.
your building needs to be on the lake view. So I'm like, okay, these are items that I can start with, very simple. And then I made a huge checklist of all the different topics I wanted to go through. But that was like, that's going to take me years to finish. So
Mhm.
my idea was, well, maybe I'll just put this out very rough, very like a beta, and then I can get feedback, see if people even want this. Like, is this even something people are interested in? And also use it as an opportunity to put a survey out to get more feedback. So I put it out for $6. It was just a digital version,
Mhm.
definitely not comprehensive at that point because could only do so much. But it did a pay what you want. So you could pay $6 or you could pay 600 if you want. Obviously no one did that. But then it gave me permission to not have it be perfected before
Mhm.
getting it out there. And I was able to get feedback. And within like a day of putting it out, I think I had maybe, I don't know, maybe almost 100 people download
Wow.
it, get it, and download it. And I was like, okay, people do want this.
Mhm.
And it was so great getting feedback. Like it was just a fun way to study, a way to break up the studying, something that was unique and different, made them feel childlike. So it was actually bringing back ways to remember the information. That was something too, is people saying that actual either coloring or connecting helped them remember that information later down the road. So felt powerful about it. And then so I was constantly updating, iterating, and basically if you bought the
Mhm.
beta, you were getting updates, these updates. But the thing that kept throwing me off was the visuals. Like I had the
Right.
layout and everything, but to sketch it or to do anything felt like more than I was able to take on. So the
Mhm.
very first, it would be fun to compare the first versus where it is now because the very first one was very like generalized graphics. You know, I pulled them from the internet, nothing
Yeah.
too exciting. Maybe a couple Illustrator things of mine. So then I follow 07 Sketches on Instagram, and I love his sketches. They are always so and
Mm.
they're always so playful, and they're exactly what I envisioned for the book. And I was like, "Oh, well, I guess I could take time to sketch them, but I know I'd overthink it, and there's a lot of
Mm.
sketches." Like, maybe I should just reach out and ask him if he would be interested in providing sketches for the book. And he has over 1,000,000 followers now, and I think at the time, I don't think he had a million, but close.
Mhm.
And I remember talking to my husband being like, "There's no way. He's probably not even gonna read his DMs, like, there's so many he probably receives so much information, probably be, like, crazy expensive, or how would that even work?" And my husband's like, "Just do it, like, just message."
Mhm.
He's always been like that, like, "Just shouldn't
Yeah.
shit or get off the pot," you know, that type of sorry for the
Yep.
language. But
That's all good. We can cuss here.
so it's like just because what are you gonna lose, right?
Mhm.
So I should look and see if I can find that original message. But basically it was like, I love your work. I've followed you forever. I have this activity book that I'm doing that's helping people with the exams. I think I even maybe either sent him it then or afterwards, but it was not long and he responded like, "Yeah, I would love to chat more and collaborate with you and we can see, what that would look like." I'm like, "All right." So we got on WhatsApp. I sent him
Nice.
what I was looking for, made some notes. He did a couple like initial, "Is this what you're looking for?" And it was exactly what I was looking for. And it was so incredible to collaborate with someone who is in their zone of genius, right? Like their
Mhm.
zone of genius is the sketching. That's never been mine. And
Mhm.
to not feel like, "Oh, I have to do it all myself." So
Mhm.
delegating is something I've been working on as a business owner and stuff. So and also, how do you collaborate and connect with other people who are in their zones of genius so that you can also be in yours? And bringing him on allowed me to create new ideas, put together new, like so much more activities than I would have had before, and then send him, and then he was sketching. And it really elevated the whole activity book itself because now it's like it's very well done and I need to send him even some more because there's some that don't have sketches because they're crossword puzzles or something,
Mhm.
but I really appreciate his collaboration. He's been so sweet. I sent him the physical book. He's posted
Nice.
about it, and he's just a very warm person. And it was a great learning lesson of
Mhm.
reaching out to people and collaborating. And you never know. Like, of course, people can say no, and that's fine too, but maybe they say yes, and then you form this wonderful relationship and you are elevating a product for other people through bringing in more people. So it was a great lesson of putting myself out there. And also, I have just collaboration over the last, since I started podcasts, realizing how powerful the group, the mastermind mind is
Mhm.
versus the individual. And it's been one of the greatest things I've done is connect with all these people.
Mhm. No, I resonate with that so much. The podcast has really first, it has made me feel like I'm not alone in entrepreneurship. There is this, like, sense of community, so I just wanted to touch on that, but wow, like, I love hearing that you just put yourself out there and you're like, yeah, like, what worst thing that can happen is they say no, and I also really love that you said they can stay in their zone of genius, you can stay in yours, and then you can create that amazing product, and that's where the delegation, which is something I'm also working on as well, currently, is the delegating things that I don't like or things that I'm not good at and bringing people on so that I can grow and scale my business. But then you also did it in a way that you could create a product that more people would like, you would be proud of, the person you're collaborating with be proud of, and then also there's this cross collaboration, people get to learn about who he is, who you are, and there's just like so much positive that can come out of it, not only a beautiful product, but this also kind of like collaboration, but also friendship in a way. Like, I feel like now you can say that you guys are friends in a way in the creative space because you work together, and who knows what you're going to be able to, accomplish in the future together.
Yeah, and I've even reached out to him since then about certain ideas that I've had, like, "Hey, would you be interested?" And he's always like, "Yeah, let's do it," So
Nice.
it is really exciting to create these connections with people, and I think sometimes, on Instagram too, you can get intimidated by a following number and be like,
Yep.
"Oh, well, they have a certain amount of following, they're gonna be too good or
Mhm.
too busy or whatever," but I have found that a lot of people, I mean, not everybody, but there are certain people that are willing to either connect with or go on podcasts or do collaborations with, and it almost more often than not.
No, that's great to hear. I've already been starting to think about other collaborations I can personally do. And I know, like, you and I have kind of collaborated just coming on the podcast. Like, this I see as a collaboration as well. And just being able to share information and just like, it just, I don't know, especially because we are in such a collaborative field. I
Mhm.
think it also comes a little bit more easily and naturally for us as architects because in our day to day jobs and even in studio and school projects, we had to learn to collaborate with other professions, other classmates. So I think we have that in our nature, and then it's amazing to see that we can bring it to another level.
Yeah, definitely. So, like I said, came out last year, so it's been a year and a half, and what I ended up doing was I did that final iteration, basically, for everybody. Then I actually started the ABC Club, which was originally started last July as simply a space where you would get new activity sheets each month. So the idea was that you could purchase the digital book, but then you could also get new activity sheets each month. Well, I also had, like, an acoustics course, a contracts course, like, all these various things. So, the doing less but better, I'm like, "What if
Mhm.
I, instead of having all these various options, incorporate all of this into the ABC Club," which ABC was Activity Book Collective, which is why it
Mhm.
started that,
Yes.
and have it just be one membership where they could get these lessons and different activity sheets, but then they could also get, like the acoustics course, now that can have an accompanying activity sheet, or this one on project fees has a podcast episode audio, and then it also has a study guide, and then it also has practice quiz, and then it also has an activity sheet. So the whole goal is that whether you prefer to learn by doing and doing a practice quiz, or learn by listening and having an audio, or learn by doing an activity sheet, there's all these various ways that people learn that they can help retain the information and just be more dynamic, so not be so, okay, we are only going to learn this one way.
Mhm.
And it's like it started as this one little seed of an activity book, and then it's fully expanded. So now we have the ABC Club, and then we also have the physical activity book, which people told me that having something physical was something they really enjoy
Mhm.
doing. So it went from all these various things synthesized down to just those. And the ABC Club is something I am very proud of and happy about because it's a lower ticket item that can be more accessible to everybody, where Mind Over ARE is a higher ticket. It's more, we only have capacity for, say, 20 people each quarter. So it's not able to help as many people. So the ABC Club's a way to help more people and give them a new idea of what it takes to study for these exams and keep that fun. And I even have a section that explains the science behind play and how important it is for our learning. And so hopefully people can get like a little snippet of Mind Over ARE's ethos, I guess,
Mhm.
inside there and start practicing that. So it's been an evolution of 4 years now since I started the podcast of what that looks like. And it's really exciting. And I love being able to help people. And I love hearing the messages of, oh my gosh, I just passed my exam. Like it's just so wonderful. So baby steps, right? Like I think people look at people's success and want to be there right away or
Mhm.
look at programs. I remember back in the day looking at people's memberships or programs and be like, oh my gosh, I want that. But realizing that it is an evolution, nothing can be done overnight. And even still, like the membership and the resources I have are continually evolving, listening to feedback, and the goal is just to create the most effective, enjoyable resources to help people through this often difficult journey of licensure.
Mm. You brought up the point exactly at the end that I was going to touch on as well as you see people's finish line. You don't always see the work that goes into it. And you're
Mhm,
like, oh, and now there's so many coaching programs and all these courses that you can take. Yeah, but those took years to
mhm,
develop the community and the people who can then trust you. And like listeners now know, it started with you just sharing one video on YouTube years ago, just
mhm.
about your experience. And here you are now. So it does slow growth, but it sounds like it's really incredibly rewarding.
It is, and the word you just used is right on, as community,
Mm.
because I am able to help and produce these resources all because of the community, that listening to them and hearing what they're struggling with and what they need, and literally developing resources based on what the community is saying that they need or what they're looking for or what they don't have. And also, building up that community for the first few years was really great because I do believe there was a trust in there, that it's not like, "Oh, this person's just coming out of the woodworks and wants my money." It's like, I care so much about this community and these people who are trying to hit their lifelong goal,
Mm.
and it's so much more than just a business, and sometimes that can bite me because I'm like, "I just wanna give everyone everything for free and help everyone pass." But I'm like, "Well, I've learned that in order to grow this and be able to make the best resources ever, obviously, like, there has to be an monetary, energetic exchange,
Yes.
but the community is such a huge part of that, and that's, like, lifelong. Like, people who have already passed are still I'm still in their community, like, "Oh my gosh, you're pregnant, that's so exciting," and,
Yeah.
people getting married and having these life experiences way down the line. It's a good group, and social media is pretty awesome for being able to help facilitate that community.
No, absolutely, and I just was remembering, I've seen videos of you posting everybody's names on Post-it notes. Like, you
Yeah.
can see how passionate you are. Like, when you join Bryn's group, like, she writes your name on a Post-it note. Like, that's how passionate and involved she is in your journey in passing the AREs. So, you really have created a beautiful community.
And I have all my Post-it notes right here, so when my office door is open, you can't see them, but when it's closed, when I'm sitting at my desk, I can see everybody's
Oh,
names, and it's
oh,
really wonderful.
oh, that's amazing. Well, Bryn, thank you so much for taking the time to come on From the Honeycomb again, share your Mind Over ARE course, your collaboration with 07 Sketches. I'll provide links in the show notes for all your products, everything. If anybody wants to purchase the products, it's definitely worth it. Join the course. And where can listeners find you as well?
Instagram is the best way to find me, Be Young Design. And you can shoot me a DM if you ever want. I'm pretty responsive with that. If you want to check out any of resources, like Katerina said, she can provide a link for our website, and I can put together something special for your listeners. I don't know what it is yet. I'll put together like a code or something for you guys. So,
Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll
Of
provide a
course.
link in the show notes. Bryn, thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of From the Honeycomb podcast. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to rate, review, and share it with your friends. To stay connected, follow me on Instagram at From the Honeycomb podcast, and you can support the podcast through the Patreon link in the show notes. And don't forget to subscribe to my monthly newsletter where I share exclusive behind-the-scene content and tips on running a mindful and successful architecture business. Thank you again for listening, and stay curious.